So we're back in the comment section again with Gotham Knights. I know, another Gotham Knights video. Some people are over here maybe trying to make snide comments at me making these videos about Gotham Knights and saying, well, you're always having to defend the game and so on and so forth. If the game is that good, it should stand on its own. I don't think that's necessarily the fact or what it is that I'm talking about. In fact, somebody even said I don't want people to, in a sense, criticize Gotham Knights. I honestly don't care. In fact, in some of my videos, you would hear me say, by all means, go ahead and levy your criticisms. I think I use the word levy your criticisms a lot. I mean, that's kind of like my way of, bookmarking the fact that I mention that all the time. My problem is with the criticisms that usually will hail another game as better than Gotham Knights, when in reality, that game faced very similar issues to Gotham Knights. I think a lot of people didn't know this, or maybe they pretend to not remember that these issues were in Arkham Knight, like the 30 FPS lock on PC at release, or the fact that the story disappointed fans, or even the fact that the boss fights kind of sucked in Arkham Knight. They say these things like Arkham is this grail of, all manner of best game ever. And I have 300 hours on just my PC version of Arkham Knight, which for the most part, I've actually outplayed this game more than some of these folk that are talking here. And I actually do like the game, even to the point where I take the time to go ahead and learn a little bit more in terms of the context. And Arkham was one of the reasons I jumped into video game development in regard to a hobby. So I don't necessarily see how a lot of these conclusions come about without the objectivity in terms of holding everyone to the same standards. I see Gotham Knights being held to a different standard. I come out and I make a video pointing out the hypocrisy. That's what I'm going to keep doing. Let's jump into the comment section. You see, when people say things like Gotham Knights is an objectively bad game, one of my audience members said that. They were like, you seem to not want people to, go ahead and criticize Gotham Knights. Never said that. Never have I done that. In fact, what I'm doing is I'm holding the critics to the highest possible refined standards, like analytical, chemistry, in a sense, where you look at the fine, details of the purity of your chemical compound, making sure that it is without any kind of, impurities or whatever, which I see a lot of the reviews and the critics, their Arkham impurities, in a sense, bias is heavily influencing how they view Gotham Knights. Mad Hayes 01 says, this is a great game. This is for Gotham Knights, by the way. I'm so glad I wasn't put off by the terrible reviews. Matthew Winslow, me and my brother just started playing last weekend and I'm enjoying it. In fact, I would say that if you look at the date for last weekend, you're looking at March 10th, 11th, and 12th. So as recently as just a few weeks ago, people are discovering that a lot of what people were claiming about Gotham Knights is actually not the case. Honestly, I say maybe in a side of performance, I can understand that performance side. But again, it goes back to showing the bias, because we can actually look just on YouTube. Video continues to sit there about how Arkham Knight performed very poorly on PC, that it had to be taken down from the Steam store. It was crashing. It was locked at 30 FPS. I know for those of you who are here saying on console that, Arkham Knight is locked on, or Gotham Knights is locked on 30 FPS. PC players had to deal with it back then. I didn't know. I played on the PlayStation 4, so I didn't even know about this until I started looking into a lot of what went down with the release of this game. Some people have even gone as far as saying it wasn't Rocksteady that made the PC port. So, you can't even really blame Rocksteady for that PC port. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, we kind of know that, but you're the developer whose name is on the project. Because if we actually did play that game, you would also realize that within a lot of the different studios, that the development across the board is shared and is also, in a sense, done by other studios. If we're going to play that game, which I've seen people play that game, QLOC did the PC port for Gotham Knights. QLOC did the PC ports for Mortal Kombat. They do PC ports, them and Iron Galaxy back in the day, they do PC ports for Warner Brothers games and a whole bunch of other games out there. So if you're going to actually hold Gotham Knights to a standard, you must be willing to claim that you've actually embraced that same shortcoming in a different game. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying don't criticize Gotham Knights. I'm just saying when you criticize Gotham Knights, make sure that you say, well, I'm criticizing Gotham Knights about something that I actually didn't, accept in a different video game. That's all. If it sounds to you like I'm actually checkmating you in a chess game, saying that your criticisms are probably weak because you're not being, in a sense, objective or consistent, then I guess that's the fault of your argument. Your argument needs to probably be stronger, in a sense, right? So that's pretty much where I'm coming from. I mean, maybe it's not a checkmate. Maybe if I'm, checking you, I guess in a chess game. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to ensure that this whole thing about video game, critics is, as in a sense, seen as what that is. The video game criticism side is a very interesting niche within our community of gamers. And they have a huge amount of power to influence a video game that many times, in a sense, could be bringing about something that is actually bigger than just their initial preference. Because I cannot tell you one single reviewer that did not talk about Gotham Knights in light of the Arkham games, especially when the fact that all these games are just very different. The Arkham games are action-adventure games. Many players wanted the combat where they could just feel like, I woke up this morning and I'm the super apex predator. Well, that's not the case. You're playing as the knights. You're playing as the kids in an RPG context where you kind of have to, in a sense, cut your teeth in the streets and building your character up. So a lot of these, different reviews have to basically come to terms and say, we're separating things, because how many of these action-adventure games do you actually want? More? Okay. Well, wait for Spider-Man, the second one, to come out in the fall. Wait for Wolverine. Wait for Wonder Woman. No one is saying that these games are not going to, in a sense, fulfill your desire to want to punch everybody and have a counter button. But then when it comes to an RPG game, usually RPG games require a higher skill level, in a sense. For the most part, here you are. You got to actually work to get there. And I think it's a good thing that we have a good variety of these games. We had Midnight Suns taking the turn-based side of things. We had Injustice taking the fighting game side of things. And so I think at the end of the day, we must weigh these games in that context. No one ever would have expected that Midnight Suns will be judged in light of Avengers or in the light of, say, another team-based game. What kind of nonsense is that? No one would have expected that Injustice be held to the Arkham standards. What kind of nonsense is that? And even Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League right now is not even getting that benefit of the doubt. I told y'all that with this particular reasoning of many gamers thinking that the superhero, genre is like some kind of, I don't know, sacred cow that cannot be touched or changed from its, existing formula or so-called beloved formula, they were going to reject Suicide Squad heavily. They did. Rejected it so much the developers have basically, the publisher has basically, indefinitely suspended, their release of the game for the meantime. They haven't even said anything about a release date. Not saying that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League would have been a good game. I don't know how the game would have turned out, but here we are. Even those who actually wanted to play Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, you're reaping exactly the seeds that are being sown. And I understand, some of you here in our audience, you say, I don't like the Gotham Knights game. I'm looking forward to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Well, think about it. If Gotham Knights was actually judged and weighed in the perspective of, say, maybe looking at other RPGs or other similar games, people say things like, oh, in Gotham Knights, I have to dodge when I'm fighting. Yo, bro, if you're playing the Arkham games, you could just counter almost everybody or, counter their, unblockables or whatever it is you want to call it. But many other video games, when you're fighting in combat, you actually kind of have to dodge, which, like you say, breaks the flow of your combat, right? Well, yeah, it's a thing. It's been in games forever. So if you're dodging in one game and you're saying, I don't want to dodge in another game, that's kind of a weird argument, to be honest, if you get what I mean. Because combat designs, which is, I think, a big issue for many people in the way that they've actually seen and, engaged with Gotham Knights, is a very interesting thing. And so I'm just saying, a lot of the different criticisms to me just did not necessarily make sense. And it did not make sense from the perspective of, all these systems are in other games that have already basically become so-called beloved games, right? And so I could not necessarily understand where all this stuff was coming from at the end of the day. But yeah, criticize. Just make sure that when you're criticizing, you have context on your side, if you get what I mean. So that's pretty much my video today. I just thought I'd go ahead and mention this stuff here because I think our conversations have to be a lot more elaborate. Things are changing, man. Things are going to change in the gaming industry very fast. There are some moves that I see these publishers and these developers making that, man, they're really going to flip everything over the top. They're going to flip things upside down. In fact, the gaming community is positioned for it, I think. But I don't think at large, the way things have been done over the past few years, I don't think people who are in that mindset are really going to be able to figure out how these changes are going to come about so fast. I don't want to say anything in this video because I want to see it come to play, and then I'll be able to kind of keep track of it and so on and so forth. So thanks for watching. We'll talk soon. Peace out.